Good afternoon. My name is Christina McLean, and this is my partner, Kiera Soto. Today, we will be explaining the reason we thought Ana Garcia died. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. How did Ana die? In our opinion, Ana died from a lack of oxygen through her body, which can also be known as hypoxia. In this case, led to a brain death. Ana encountered some of the symptoms or signs of hypoxia, such as fast heart rate and blue lips. Some treatments for hypoxia include getting medical attention right away and constantly checking your oxygen level. Here we have linked a 4-minute video of a simulation of hypoxia. This will give you a little idea of what Ana went through.
Oxygen saturation, which is still in a healthy range.
We flew a little lower than the first group, 25,000 feet. The first to notice any symptoms was one of AOPA's professional pilots.
Pleasant feeling, which is part of the problem.
I'm starting to feel like hot.
Okay, flushing. That's one of the first hypoxic signs.
I didn't feel much,
Slight dizziness, but
Okay.
not too bad.
but Dr. Pinnell detected serious hypoxic symptoms with another colleague.
Your fingers are actually starting to get cold too.
I have an estimate on anyway.
And he's also starting to get a little bit of tremors too.
Back out of the chamber, we compared notes.
I still didn't believe how fast the effect is.
I felt woozy, but I didn't feel like there was a dramatic change. But I feel like I could have recognized something was off and requested a descent. But I guess when you're looking for it, it's a little bit different.
So the next thing we have are the careers that have helped Ana. The first thing we decided to do was a nutritionist. We figured that was important because the nutritionist is going to help her through her diet and figure out what she should be eating. So because of her diabetes, you don't want too much sugar, but you don't want too little sugar. So it's going to create a balance in her diet. So it's basically everything she should be eating. The next thing is a certified diabetes educator. A certified diabetes educator will support her and educate her on her diabetes. So she will know from that doctor that what would happen to her if she went into diabetic shock, where she would need to inject herself, all those different types of things that makes it easier for you to understand diabetes and what to do if something happens. The next thing we have is a podiatrist. A podiatrist helps with your feet and ankles in that area. So it would have really helped with her ankles and feet because of the swelling. And it will find different treatment plans for that so she can actually live her daily life and be able to walk around and do things, because with the swelling it causes a lot of pain. The next thing we have is an ophthalmologist. An ophthalmologist examines the eyes and treats the eye problems. So with Ana, she had damaged blood vessels and there was inflammation in her eye. So there were signs of cataracts in her eye. And the ophthalmologist would have looked at that and would start to figure out a plan for Ana to follow. The next thing we have is an endocrinologist, which treats hormonal imbalance and can manage how the disease goes. So basically, Ana had hypertension, which is high blood pressure, and that's what the endocrinologist was treating. So I wanted to get that down, that way it wasn't too high, so she wouldn't have any problems. And then lastly, we have a hematologist, and a hematologist works with her red blood cells because they were damaged because of her sickle cell anemia, which creates that hook-like shape, just like a fishing hook. And with that hook shape, it causes plaque, and it makes it harder for the blood to go and oxygen to go through.
These are just some pictures of the actual crime scene. In the top right, you can see the aspirin that she took. Bottom right, you can see a footprint, a bloody footprint. Right here, you can see that she did throw up. And you can see where she hit her head. It was in the middle of her forehead. You can see the blood and that it is an open wound. And then you can see her blue lips, which are a sign of lack of oxygen. Right here, this red Solo cup, this is a spilled drink. It was a sugary drink that she was drinking that she shouldn't have been. This picture right here, this is a picture of the fingerprint that was left at the crime scene. This is an overview picture of the whole crime scene. This is the table that she hit her head on. This is the EpiPen that she injected herself with. And this is just another picture of the whole crime
Okay,
scene.
so the next thing that we're going to move on to is the evidence found at the scene. So we did find evidence at the scene, and this is really important to figure out how she died. The first thing we found was hair. We had to figure out whose hair it was so we can piece it all together. So the hair did belong to Anna. We figured that out because the medulla was very easily seen and it was the same hair color. Next thing we found was a fingerprint. The fingerprint was not Anna's, so people that have been around her or could have motive to kill her became a suspect. But we soon eliminated them because she did not die of anything that happened to her because of somebody else, but the fingerprint did belong to her ex-husband, Alex. We found blood on the floor of the crime scene and leaking off of the desk, off of her head too. We realized that she had an open wound somewhere because the blood did come back that it was hers. And we soon saw the open wound on her head. The next thing we found was the throw. The next thing that we're moving on to is the aspirin. So we figured that since Anna was up and then she fell down and hit her head, that she did have a headache and had dizziness. So the headache and dizziness was caused to the lack of oxygen that she was actually getting to her brain, and her diabetes could have caused swelling in her body, so it would have relieved the pain. Next, we have a shoe print, which is also pretty important because we didn't know whose it was until we matched it to Anna's. She did happen to go on a walk with her dog that morning, so that shoe print could have been there because she could have stepped in the blood after hitting her head or anything. The next thing that we have is a spilled drink. The spilled drink wasn't a very sugary drink, and she should have not had been drinking that, so she could have been in diabetic shock, but we moved on from that and figured out what the real cause of this was. The next thing we found was an EpiPen, and there were 4 wound marks in her leg that we saw, so she was going into some type of diabetic shock or was having a reaction to something. And lastly, we found blue fingernails, which is a huge sign of lack of oxygen to the brain. So her fingernails were blue, her lips were blue, and it showed that she was lacking oxygen.
Okay, so in order to find out how Anna actually died, you have to investigate the whole crime scene, and in order to investigate, you have to know how. So I have provided a list of the steps that you would go through in order to investigate a crime scene. So step 1 is locate the focal point of the scene, which in this case would be Anna. Step 2 is establish security, use caution tape. You want to block off any public traffic going through, and you want to make sure only the investigators can get in, and you want to make sure all of the evidence is inside of that area. Step 3 is identify the potential evidence. Step 4 is document and process the scene. And step 5 is to record and preserve the evidence. You want to number your evidence. You want to take pictures of it. You want to secure it. You want to test it. You want to see what it is, why she would have it, why she would be using it, and what caused her to. These are just the crime scene investigation techniques that we learned in Unit 1 and that were used at Anna Garcia's crime scene. So first, you need to know the different types of a blood spatter. There's the large volume impact spatter, passive bloody shoe, void, and projected. Learning types of blood stains helped us to identify what type of blood stain was at the crime scene. In this case, there was a bloody shoe print, which could have been Anna's. When she fell, she could have stepped in her blood and then just, yeah. Technique number 2 are the search methods. There are link, spiral, line, grids, zone, and wheel and ray. These are used as different ways to number the evidence and make sure you get all of the evidence. You want to have a certain pattern to go around and make sure you have all of the evidence and you know what order everything goes in. Number 3 are the types of hair. There could be human hair, animal hair, organic, synthetic, and cuticle hair. By learning these, we were able to determine what type of hair was at the crime scene. In this case, there was Anna's hair, and there was animal hair from her dog. Number 4, fingerprint analysis. This is used to identify the person at the scene. The fingerprint that we found on the table at the crime scene was Alex's, so this leads us to wonder if someone was also involved in her death.